Thanks so much, Rod, for being here. I'm Alexander, joined here with Josh, and we're here just to talk about the needs of today. There's a lot of stuff going on right now that there's a lot of issues, and we've got a lot of transitions, big time of change, and here we are trying to best navigate it. And so, Rod, thanks again for joining us. We're happy to have you, and we're happy to just chat through and get some of your insights. How's everything going there in Houston?
Well, like everywhere else, it's craziness right now. Whether you're at the grocery store or whether your wife, like mine, works at a hospital, it's nuts.
Oh, wow. Yeah. You know, I was just talking with my wife yesterday about how the medical personnel, they're the really and truly, I feel like they're the troops right now. You know, we talk about wars out somewhere else, but now we've got a war of medicine here. And it's very appreciative to her and all the others that are out there hours and hours and hours trying to help us recover. So thank you for her sacrifice. It's wonderful.
Well, thank you. Thank you for recognizing that. She's, like everyone else, terrified to go to work sometimes. So.
Yeah, I can imagine. You know, and speaking of that, as we speak holistically about really the workforce in general, you know, across the country, I don't think there's a single industry that isn't impacted. And unfortunately, I think most of it's kind of negative. What are some of the largest effects of COVID-19 that you're seeing on the workforce as a whole?
Well, this whole operating remotely, although we've talked about it, we've done it some, we've never depended on it. Right. And now it's a total dependency on it. And if you think about leadership, which is kind of my area of expertise, leadership is kind of about connectedness and building relationships. And now we've got this barrier where it's not face-to-face, and we know that somewhere between 60 and 90% of communication is nonverbal. And so we lose a lot of it in the translation. But I think that the core of it is the trust piece. Can I trust this person to do the work that I've assigned them to do for the day? Can I trust them not to be distracted by their family that's in pain, or their parents that are in pain, or, you know, whatever it is? There are a lot of distractions that the individual's dealing with now in their personal life, aside from just the leadership dynamics of connecting them and getting the work done. There's a lot of noise now besides that. So you got the technology piece, you've got the distractions piece, you've got the sort of the continual CNN doomsday news that people are dealing with. So they've got this Santa's sack of stuff on their back in addition to trying to get the work done every day in a new challenging environment.
Right. And how is, when we talk about, you know, the employees and their kind of day-to-day experience on the whole at work, in the workplace, we've traditionally couched that as more of an HR sort of focused thing, right? Who's worrying about all of the employees? Well, HR is kind of that function. How has that role now shifted for HR now that everybody is remote? Is there a responsibility? How can HR help? What is that new dynamic that you see as with all these new problems that that employees are facing?
Well, you know, you've got a lot of people that are dealing with children that are at home, and so they have to be, well, I don't know if you're in a community that's bound at home now. We are bound at home now.
Right. Same.
For the next few weeks anyway. But before that, it was, I've got kids at home, I have to leave. There's nobody to take care of my kids. And now we've got the new FMLA laws that have come through that help cover some of that. But are they in place yet? And do we have processes and procedures around that yet? And so there's a lot of pressure on the HR folks to build a fence around these new rules and new dynamics that weren't there before. But fortunately, from what I've seen, a lot of the leadership, C-suite leadership, has stepped up and has taken more of an active role in some of that and feeding information to the HR people that maybe we haven't been getting before, because they've got a new dynamic in how they lead their teams.
Yeah, there's so much really going at them right now, and it is so much more difficult to create those new boundaries that you just talked about, creating those new norms, those processes when people aren't there to get that feedback from. You know, now you can't really see the result if you enact some sort of new initiative or policy at the company. Before you'd have, 20 people pounding on your door, this is the worst, or this is great, we love it, but now it's, that feedback is much less. Maybe you get some emails, but that's a big struggle.
I did observe something interesting this week. I've got a daughter that's living with us now because she's typically living alone, and she's here with us, at least the three of us together, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
So she observed a leader who was very, she shared some emails and things with me, very demanding, very, I need you on your computer at 8, I need you in a meeting at 5 to make sure you're still working at 5, and things like that. And while some of that is probably necessary as we build these boundaries around this work, I think what was missing was, in this particular case, that acknowledgement that these people at home are dealing with new stuff too. You know, they're dealing with the distractions, they're dealing with the doomsday news every day. And I think some of those conversations can start with, oh my gosh, I realize your life is turned upside down right now. We're trying to do the best we can to keep the company afloat. Here's what would help us if you could do these things for us during this time period. Instead of jumping right in and saying, hey, I'm not sure I trust you, which is the unspoken word, right? I'm not sure I trust you to do the things that we need done, instead of acknowledging that it's a problem for them too.
Well, and it's interesting too, because, you know, you're talking about the new trust, the new workforce. And I know it's too soon to tell at this point what the impact is going to be of coronavirus. And I have heard a lot of professionals say it's going to be vastly different than we can even imagine at this point. But I'm just curious, from your perspective, looking forward, what are going to be those big moments of change, and how can we start adapting now?
Yeah. So I think the positive is that we're going to discover that we can work remotely effectively, that maybe we don't need the workspaces that we currently have. Maybe we don't need the brick and mortar buildings that we currently have for many roles. You know, we're finding that even the water cooler type conversations are happening offline somewhere, you know, online, but offline from the office, differently than they were before. And then I think we're going to discover a lot of things about our own lives. So for instance, I've got these kids who live in 2 in Seattle, 1 in Denver, and 1 here. And last Thursday, we did a virtual happy hour for our family. You know, they're grown kids. And we enjoyed it so much, and we'd never tried it before, that now it's our new norm. Every Thursday or every other Thursday night, we're going to do a family gathering. And I think the same kinds of aha moments are happening in the workspace. Oh, this really does work. People maybe are more productive. I was commuting 3 hours round trip a day in Houston up until November when I started my business. And to think that I've got 3 hours more a day, and am I on my own and I don't work as much? I work more than I did when I was working down at the other office, traveling that much. So I think there are a lot of things that are going to come to fruition in this. And it's mostly of we've got to try it and hope it works. And by God, a lot of these work.
Thanks a bunch. I really appreciate it. And, you know, as we kind of wrap up our little power session here, anything else you'd like to add and suggest? Any thoughts, resources, anywhere that we can, you know, direct those HR leaders to help them find that help that they need?
You know, most people are connected through SHRM, but I think LinkedIn has a lot of these sort of smaller networks. There's networks for networks, employee relations and things like that they can find their niche group that gives them the most leverage. So I would say LinkedIn right now, I think, is the best place they could go to try to find those. And then to fight the good fight against loneliness. People are lonely working at home alone, and figure out new ways to get people connected, whether they're HR people or whether they're just your rank and file employee. Figure out ways to keep them connected so that the loneliness doesn't creep in.
It's a real thing right now. Well, thanks so much. We really appreciate your insights. We'll and are looking forward to sharing this with our communities so that we can try to be the biggest force of positive change right now that everybody needs. Anyway,
congratulations to you guys for doing this.
Well, thank you so much. All right, take care.